Hello, everyone. It's Sunday, October 27th. I'm Brad Hartley, and this is Critical Mass TV, the show that brings some mixed mental arts for intellectual self-defense. You are much more powerful as a neural ninja than an indoctrinated idiot. All of my wide and ranging opinions are mine alone and are not necessarily those of the guests or of the station, even though they should be. Normally, we are a live call-in show, but due to my error in scheduling, we have had to record this episode on Sunday morning. My apologies, but remember, in 2 weeks, we will be back again live, and I sure would love to hear your feedback. We have 3 segments for this show today. Eye on the Greed Cult with yours truly. Then Art Break with Kathy is always a fun interview with a local creative genius. Finally, I'll close with AYFKM, or Are You Freaking Kidding Me? Where tonight we'll start a look at Pentagon Privatized. Proof that for neoliberal lunatics, corporate capitalist, perpetual war for profit seems like a brilliant idea. All right, let's open the eye. Remember, the active critical mass of the moment is at the top, where, like dynastic kings of old, power groups are not only consolidating absolute power, but funneling as much wealth as possible into their various offshore bank accounts. It's a giant reverse Robin Hood, where what is stolen from the poor is lavished on the rich. Only if there is no resistance from the mass of us can this be perpetuated. Unlike the methods of the historical kings, we can't be bludgeoned and tortured into being docile alone. Thought control for the masses has proven very effective for a century now. Using corporate media to distract and mislead has harnessed our rebellious, justice-loving spirits and corralled us as a self-hating working people. Enter the Tea Party, a blatant expression of putting the little person's face on the big corporate agenda. So here's the Tea Party platform, or what they call their 10 core beliefs. Eliminate excessive taxes, eliminate the national debt, eliminate deficit spending, protect free markets, abide by the Constitution, promote civic responsibility, reduce the size of government, believe in the people, avoid the pitfalls of politics, I don't know how you do that, and maintain local independence. So very few people would argue that these principles aren't important. It's what's missing, though, that illustrates the who benefits and who pays aspect of this AstroTurf movement. Firstly, there is no reference in this platform to the absolute domination and mind-blowing corruption of the corporate sector. Second, the budget-busting trillions of dollars poured into the Pentagon as corporate welfare and world domination insurance aren't even mentioned. And I guess, what the hell, it's only $1 trillion or so a year. So let's brainstorm a moment and see what else might be interesting. We, as part of the people, own the government. We the people. It's our government. Therefore, a concerted effort by us could change the priorities and direction of government. If enough of us are tricked into hating and mistrusting our own government, we won't defend it as it is attacked by the greed cult and hijacked into strictly a wealth enhancement system for the rich paid for by us. Oh yeah, there's also no mention that corporate America is no longer paying any meaningful income taxes. So the fact that those most able to contribute don't contribute at all apparently doesn't cause anyone to choke on their scone at this tea party. All right, let's go on. Once the regulatory system crashes, so the federal regulatory system that we live under, once it crashes, who is in control at that point? One would have to be honest and admit that corporate capital, or greed 2.0, is going to be completely in charge. Everything the average Tea Partier believes is literally laughed about in country clubs and corporate boardrooms. If your opinions are the same as the opinions of billionaires, you might be getting scrooped, which is a new word I just coined. It would be being duped and screwed at the same time. A new study funded by the National Cancer Institute and the National Institute of Health confirms that the front groups, Americans for Prosperity and FreedomWorks, are the continuation of a multi-decade plan orchestrated by the billionaire Koch brothers, Big Tobacco, and the fossil fuels industry. Similar to the National Rifle Association, the Tea Party movement is a fake or kind of a shell grassroots effort by very large interests using well-meaning citizens to cover for an aggressive corporate agenda. The hundreds of anti-science scientists and public relations propagandists who defended tobacco and denied secondhand smoke and denied that nicotine is a drug and denied that cigarettes are a drug delivery system are now deploying worldwide through FreedomWorks and Americans for Prosperity to spread doubt about fossil fuels' role in climate change and other issues of significance for these corporations. The study's senior author is a man named Stanton Glantz, and he is a professor at UC San Francisco, and he writes, nonprofit organizations associated with the Tea Party continue to advocate on behalf of industry's anti-tax, anti-regulation agenda. So CSE, which is the Citizens for a Sound Economy, Americans for Prosperity, and FreedomWorks were once a single group called Citizens for a Sound Economy, or CSE, which was founded in 1984 by David and Charles Koch with their own money and millions from tobacco companies, mainly Philip Morris. In 1990, Tim Hyde of R.J. Reynolds Tobacco wrote, "Coalition building should proceed along two tracks. A grassroots organizational and largely local track, and B, a national intellectual track within the DC-New York corridor. We are talking about a movement, a national effort to change the way people think about government's and big business's role in our lives. Any such effort requires an intellectual foundation, a set of theoretical and ideological arguments on its behalf." So there's one sentence about the grassroots level, or the level of this organization involving average citizens. And then a national intellectual tract within the Washington, D.C., New York corridor. So that is how they would respond to the corporate directives that they're working under. Far from a popular uprising, beginning with the anti-tax protests in 2009, where the Tea Party became most visible, the CSE and the Kochs in 2002 launched the Welcome to the U.S. Tea Party website at usteaparty.com, and that was in 2002, so 7 years before the Tea Party kind of seemed to burst on the scene. In September 2011, the site was taken offline. The address is now owned by FreedomWorks. These groups have expanded to include other policies that they see as threatening free market principles, such as healthcare, financial reform, and global warming regulation. Brendan DeMell writes, "Some people in the Tea Party movement would find it a little disturbing that the grassroots movement they are so emotionally attached to is in fact a pawn created by billionaires and large corporations with little interest in fighting for the rights of the common person, but instead using the common person to fight for their own unfettered profits." People do have legitimate anger and frustration, and I'm sure all of us feel some of that. We are all very indoctrinated and relatively exploited and basically have no meaningful representation as members of our economic class, working and middle classes, basically have no meaningful representation in Washington. This goes for U.S. citizens as well as kind-hearted, intelligent people in every country in the world. In this climate, it is very easy to fall into the narrow, self-centered, victim-blaming nonsense that passes for rebellious, patriotic activism. If we had meaningful democracy with genuine political parties representing the interests of real people, much of the dysfunction of the modern world could be eliminated. People never want to be treated unjustly. They never want to be lied to or led around like a bunch of children. I will always remain hopeful because I know that even misdirected activists are at least active and that absolute truths must win out over fundamental falsehoods. At least they care about something, so let's start some conversations. Since bumper stickers are our most effective means of communicating our political ideas to each other's, here's my new one. Extinction stinks. To be a right-wing working person in any country, you are one of the most politically compromised people on the planet. You are actively supporting the people who are trying to destroy you. So now I'm going to switch over to my "Are You Freaking Kidding Me?" segment, and which I call AYFKM. And today I'm going to talk about the Pentagon privatized. A defense contractor is a business organization that provides products or services to and derives profit from a military or intelligence organization. So that's the basic definition of a defense contractor. Under the 1949 Geneva Conventions, military contractors engaged in direct support of military operations may be legitimate targets of military attacks. Contracting has expanded dramatically in the last 10 to 15 years. In 2011, the Pentagon spent about $316 billion on contracts. $316 billion, and that is probably vastly underrated. Contractors have a much larger presence in American occupations. In 1991, during the first Gulf War, the ratio of uniformed military to contractor was 50-1. So in 1991, during the first Gulf War, if you want to call it that, the ratio of uniformed military to contractor was 50 uniformed soldiers to 1 contractor working for a private corporation. Even with the surge of U.S. personnel during 2007 in Iraq, the 200,000 or so contractors were still more plentiful than our military personnel. So, in Afghanistan, presently, there is about a 1-to-1 ratio for uniformed soldier to contractor now. So from 50-1 to basically 1-to-1. All right, these are the top 10 U.S. arms dealers based on sales and the dollar amounts that they received last year from billing the Pentagon. And then just as a point of information, quickly, the percentage that revenue is of their total sales. So it's easy. Let me show you. So Lockheed Martin was the #1 contractor in billing dollars to the Pentagon. So Lockheed Martin billed for $36,270 million, and as a percentage, it's 78% of their total sales is that $36 billion plus. Boeing is #2, $31,830 million, and that was 46% of Boeing's sales. General Dynamics, $23 billion, $760 million, and again, that's 73% of General Dynamics sales. Raytheon, $22,470 million, and that's 90% of Raytheon's total sales. Northrop Grumman, $21,390 million last year, 81% of their total sales. L3 Communications, $12,250 million, 83% of their sales. United Technologies Corp., $11,640 million, 20% of their sales. SAIC, $7,940 million, adding up to 75% of their total sales. Huntington Ingalls Industries, $6,380 million, 97% of their total sales. Number 10 is Honeywell, coming in at $5,280 million and 14% of Honeywell's sales. This adds up, folks, to $179,210 million, and that's just the top 10 contractors. Okay, just to get a little bit of an idea of the dollars, $179,000 million plus. It's kind of hard to even get your head around how much money that really is, and that is all tax money coming out of the Treasury. So these massive contracts are being less and less audited. The Defense Contract Audit Agency and Defense Contract Management Agency have a huge backlog, expected to be up to $1 trillion by 2016. So the backlog, the amount of contracts that they have not been able internally in the Defense Department to audit these private contracts, they're going to be behind the game by about $1 trillion in just a couple years. So many contracts reach the 6-year statute of limitations without audits at all, eliminating totally the ability to recoup any overpayments that the Pentagon made to these contractors. So a lot of the contracts get right to the 6-year statute of limitations. Possibly adding up to billions of dollars. The Department of Defense spending, just generally, so in 2001, the official figure, 2001, the total Defense Department spending was $310 billion. By fiscal year 2010, we're up to $691 billion. 2011, $687 billion. $646 billion for 2012, and now for 2013, $614 billion is the Department of Defense. If you add in just a little bit more honest accounting, it's probably more in the range of about $750, $760 billion, so well over $750 billion. Now, these never include the NSA, which has been in the spotlight a little bit lately. For a super secret organization, they're actually being on the evening news quite a bit more than they would hope. So none of these budgets include the NSA or any of the other intelligence spending or the drug war spending. In 2012, the Obama crew budgeted $6 billion through 2017 to develop a new long-range stealth bomber strike aircraft. This was supposed to be ready by 2025. In April 2009, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates canceled the long-range bomber project that would have deployed in 2018. It's called incremental funding. The new bomber is actually a continuation of the canceled program. Lobbying pressure has just put it back on the stove. So the contractors that are involved in actually building the plane lobby, day and night in Congress to keep these projects going. I mean, it's part of their revenue. They're using tax money for their revenue stream. When you're building weapons of destruction or military hardware, even if it's redundant, they are dependent on that for their business model. So the $6 billion won't get the project too far. Richard Abulafia, vice president at Teal Group, says, somehow we have to have the political will to shell out $120 billion over about a dozen years. And he's talking about this for this bomber program. It's $50 billion for just showing up, and that's for a prototype or two. Okay, so this is a little discussion about the Pentagon in Africa. I just found some interesting contracts relating to the new theater of war in Africa that we haven't really been told much about. The Pentagon in Africa, in August 2013, contracts were awarded to Academy, which most of us know as Blackwater. It's gone through a couple of different rebrandings since it was Blackwater. It is now known as Academy, to perform flying services for U.S. Special Forces in Africa. Based in a military airfield, now this is a little bit of a pronunciation issue here, but I think it's Ouagadougou in Burkina Faso. The missions will be throughout Africa. Targets will include Islamic Maghreb in the north and Nigeria's Boko Haram. But most immediately, Al-Shabaab in Somalia. Flights must possess small arms and ammunition, according to the contract, and operate up to 1,000 flight hours per year. When asked what aircraft would be used, the Pentagon alluded to the Casa 212, currently used by Academy, and suggested the Inquirer file a Freedom of Information Act request with the Counter-Narco-Terrorism Program Office. So when one was trying to figure out what equipment was going to be used in the contract, the Freedom of Information Act request was to be directed at the Counter-Narco-Terrorism Program Office. They have doled out billions to well-fed contractors in counter-drug and terrorism actions for many years. The U.S. Africa Command has also hired private contractors for spy duties under the Creek Sand program. The intent is to increase the African theater of war with extensive operations and keep them mostly hidden from public view with a very small military footprint. And also at Camp Munier in Djibouti, the size of it is being increased dramatically to carry out more offensive drone operations. And you could imagine that Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, and Islamic Maghreb would be high on their drone target list. So the federal government is, in a lot of ways, it's an out-of-control, money-wasting machine. I think all of us could agree on that. It just depends on your viewpoint, what you think is wasting money. The extreme right-wingers railing about the ACA are so off base, however, that it is almost funny. An honest look at the federal system would conclude that one of its primary roles is subsidizing private profit with public money. Historically has been the most profitable industry in history, using tax money as a revenue stream. So over the years, that's probably the most productive and stable industry throughout history, is building weaponry. Certain contracts, like construction and repair of infrastructure, research by private universities, etc., can be justified if one is a little mentally flexible. But to flip out about the subsidy of the insurance industry that is Obamacare and ignore the massive spending, about half of our budget, on the military and intelligence services, as well as the drug war apparatus, is to be hallucinogenically out of touch. In the recent furlough of 800,000 federal workers, some of whom were in very important safety roles, and ignore these war and spy expenditures means you are drinking the Kool-Aid and smoking the corporate dummy dust. Single-payer health care, similar to the systems in every industrialized country in the world, is and would be obviously be the answer if you are truly looking for answers. An insurance company that is nonprofit by nature and owned by all of us is single-payer health care at its core. So one must remember that when neoliberalism is the religion, destroying the New Deal and the Great Society are high on the priority list. The most efficient means of achieving this is to engineer a perpetual train wreck. So, and in Afghanistan, there's 1.6 contractors on the payroll now for each U.S. service member. So there's about 108,000 contractor personnel and 65,700 troops. The Congressional Research Service reports $159.6 billion spent on contractors from 2007 to 2012. And the GAO recently reported $195 billion spent on total contract service in 2010 alone. And that is double what was spent in 2001, just to repeat. So curbing the incredible excess of the out-of-control military-industrial political complex is not high on the political priority list. So here's the Pentagon budget in brief, including illegal overseas occupations and exploits. In 2013, around $716 billion, not including expenses in other departments or secret programs. that we know are tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, how much does the NSA's new eavesdropping and data storage facilities cost alone? Any guesses? And that would not even be the tip of the iceberg. For comparison, China spends about $106 billion, and then you could add the next 10 largest spending governments and not even equal the US's largesse. This is over half of our entire operating budget and is equal to fighting approximately 3 Vietnams and the Cold War simultaneously. And weren't we proud when we collapsed the Soviet Union by forcing their spending beyond their limits? The Government Accountability Office, or the GAO, lists the DoD as high risk. Significant financial and related business management systems and control weaknesses have adversely affected DoD's ability to control costs, ensure basic accountability, anticipate future costs, and claims on the budget. Measure performance, maintain funds control, protect and prevent fraud, waste, and abuse, address pressing management issues, and prepare auditable financial statements. Wow, if that was my report as a business person, I definitely would be fired. The GAO website lists the DoD as unauditable. You talk about entitlement. All of this to contain the actions of what? Several thousand terrorists worldwide, with no thought given publicly how to mitigate the anger and resistance in the first place. When you're in a cult of greed, things get a little crazy. The F-35s, over $400 billion spent so far with hundreds of performance and reliability problems. 70% higher than projected cost. The F-22s, $80 billion spent and not one mission flown. The USS Gerald Ford, almost destined to be a clumsy waste. $12.8 billion, new aircraft carriers with two more of that class of aircraft carrier coming down the pipeline. The U.S. Navy already has 11 carriers and not even one matched in capability by the navies of the entire Earth. The Ford is 22% over budget already since 2008, and the Navy states $48 billion will cover the others, plus probably about $20 billion more dollars. 12 new ballistic missile subs are planned, with 100 to 150 billion the price tag. I mean, who the fuck is the adversary warranting these buffaloes? Eliminating our large nuclear weapons would save $30 to $100 billion, it's estimated, and the Russians say they would follow suit. Halliburton and KBR, hi Dick Cheney, in Iraq, Pentagon auditors, rare though they may be, found $100 loads of laundry and $45 cases of soda, and on and on and on. So we will pick up on this exciting Pentagon privatized editorial here in a future show. And I mean, I think it's really interesting just to see how much money is going down that rat hole. One quick point, Norwich University, which is very local and dear to our hearts, has over $10 million in contracts to deal with digital vulnerability. Unprecedented vulnerability, they call it. Actors will respond to U.S. cyber attacks and spying. The cadets are contracted to study methods of protecting the financial services industry, which we have discussed has $10 trillion in assets. Wall Street, the top 5 Wall Street firms have about $10 trillion. And now we have Norwich University studying how to protect them. The U.S. is spying and attacking and subverting at record rates with digital technology, even diddling with our own supposed allies. self-fulfilling prophecy. It will bite you in the ass every time. So thank you very much, and we will be right back with you with Art Break with Kathy Hartley.
We'll be dead if we stand still for the next 5 to 10. And I can't sleep at night or dream. Reality ain't always seen. In these times of struggle, you can hear the children cry. Hello, ma, I'm weary. These are troubled times indeed. Though in honesty I fear thee. Uncle Sammy leads idiocracy. He never was one to keep the peace.
Hi there, and welcome to Art Break. This is a show where we feature creative Vermonters, and my guest today is Dan LeFrancois, and is that how you pronounce it?
That's pretty good.
Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
Dan is an artist. He's a painter, sculptor, does pottery, ceramics, stagehand, muralist, musician, a little bit of everything. And where did you go to school to learn these things?
I went to the school of the New England School of Design in Boston as a trained artist, but I think the School of Life really trained me early on for the crazy world of art.
Yeah, many years of School of Life.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You live and you learn.
That's right.
And so you have your BFA.
Yep.
And has that taught you more than life or less than life? Or?
The BFA was fun. You know, a lot of a curriculum to learn besides art when you get that. But you know, it was really great to be in Boston and to experience a big city and a culture, and along with learning art and seeing a lot of great art. And
right, there's a lot of museums.
Yeah, a lot of
good culture.
The MFA is great.
Right.
You know, a lot of Fort Point studios and great stuff.
Very cool. So one of the reasons you're here is because there's this book that was put out by the Peace and Justice Center, and it's a reference book for radicals, and it has all the different words that people aren't as familiar with what they mean. I'm going to quickly read this. It says, over the years, we've heard from new activists that they often feel like outsiders at meetings, rallies, and demonstrations because they lack a basic understanding of some of the terminology and slang being used in the radical community. Our Reference for Radicals book project is designed to support people of all backgrounds in taking part in progressive change by helping them become fully engaged in the activist community, working for peace and justice. And so this book is sort of an alphabet book with the different words, anarchy and occupy and prejudice, rights, radical, different words that you should probably know a little bit more about each subject, sabotage, strikes. And Dan here did the letter A for anarchy. This is his artwork here. It's an illustration.
Yep, it's an illustration of the letter A, basically taken from the old American alphabet where people configured the letter, but I used a lot of different images and people to represent that word anarchy.
It's really neat. It's got a lot in it. And so are there any specific people?
I used the Barry, Vermont Quarry anarchist movement of 1899 to illustrate one of those points. That
Oh,
was kind of
really?
a big to-do back then with socialists and Italians and everybody in the
Right.
big starting up of the of that movement. But it was kind of involved a sculptor and I believe a shootout at the end, and there was.
No kidding.
You should learn more about it.
Yeah, we'll have to definitely inquire about that and do some research on that.
Yeah.
And so that's a great drawing, and this is a really neat book. You can probably get as many copies as you want down at the Peace and Justice
Yeah.
Center. So this is just one of your projects. You have a million projects. You are a teacher at the Burlington City Arts.
Yep.
And and you teach mostly pottery and cartooning.
Yep, I've been there for almost 10 years, and I'm mainly a pottery teacher when I teach there for children.
For
So,
children.
Yeah.
Okay. And are they good? Do they take to that right away?
Oh yeah. Anything that has mess, I think,
Right.
involved would be perfect for them. And then
Right. That's perfect. And so you've had a lot of experience with teaching children.
I've had a lot. Yep. I love to work with kids, and it teaches me a lot, and I always learn something new. You know.
Kids can teach you many, many things. Yep. And you've worked with children at the King Street Youth Center.
Yep.
And you're a Big Brother. You've been with the Big Brother program for a while.
Yeah, I've been there for a little bit. Mobius, it's called. Yep.
Mobius, that's what it's called in Burlington.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
It's a pretty good organization. If you don't know anything about that, you should
Right.
check that out and
Right.
see what you can do.
Big Brother organization is a great thing. And then you were an after-school assistant director for City Kids at Edmonds Junior High? Elementary.
Elementary. Yeah.
Elementary,
I
yeah.
was.
Wow, and you had a lot of kids to teach, so you've really had a lot of experience teaching.
Yeah, we had about over 100 at that program.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot to rein in.
Yeah, yeah.
That's neat. And so tell me about your cartooning experience.
Well, I kind of started out as a cartoonist as a kid, because I had a piece of white paper and a pencil pretty much in front of me, It's cheap enough, and it's
Yeah.
and you could, the sky's the limit,
Yeah,
with a
right.
blank piece of white paper. So I started doing that, and of course I had, having two parents that were kindergarten teachers, I had a lot of Charlie Brown books and Stephen
Right.
Kellogg books and Sendak books around that I love to draw from and
Right.
practice illustrating. And
Heavily influenced by those.
yeah, and I still love that stuff.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's where it started for
So
me.
you started that, yep. Oh, Sendak and Schultz and those artists are definitely
Yeah.
hugely influential. And so then, was cartooning part of the curriculum when you got your BFA?
It really wasn't part of the curriculum, cartooning, but it was something that we were definitely pushed to do if you would want to. I mean, a part of getting the degree was to create your own image, and senior thesis and your image development classes would do that. So if you were into cartooning, then it should definitely be a part of
Right.
what you do as an artist.
Right. And you said something about was your grandfather an artist, or he was a carpenter?
He wasn't an artist. Well, he was an artist in the sense of a mechanic and a carpenter, and I spent a lot of time with him and my whole family growing up in the garage and
Right.
kind of getting the hands-on.
Right. All that
you know.
hands-on, just wanting to
Yeah.
learn all the
tools
All the tools,
of the trade.
right, right. So let's look at this sort of a multimedia piece that you did over here. Tell me what inspired you to do this?
This is a piece I did. It's mainly crayon and paint, and it was on a board that I found. It was an old paint palette from a studio that I found, and it just kind of was during the period where I was experimenting with found objects and sculpting and or painting, building with them, and kind of letting the object kind of bring the image out. So I would approach it in that sense, and I would kind of see the image in what was already there,
Right?
and
Just let it flow.
let it flow.
I like it.
Very abstract.
Yeah. Very neat. And that's a found piece of masonite.
Yep, this is, like I said, it's just, you know,
Yeah.
you got to think about sometimes, you know, if you want to show it, you know, the
Right.
hangability and the, you know, and, if you will. And,
Sometimes art is just like a way to just express yourself at the moment.
Yeah, I really got into that when I went to school, and I was walking around the city and finding trash and objects, and
I love that.
you know,
I love
rummaging.
that. Recycling and turning it into beautiful works of art. Okay, let's talk about this one first. So you want me to hold that up?
Sure.
And tell me a little bit about what inspired you to do this.
This one was a drawing that I did when I was a young kid, pencil, that I kind of reconfigured into a painting a couple months ago. I got the idea, you know, sometimes you run out of ideas, occasionally, not all the time, but sometimes you run out of ideas and you open up your old sketchbooks and you look around and go, hey, this is really awesome. It's just a little doodle on the side of the page, but
Right.
I should make this into a painting. So I started doing a lot of that with my old sketchbooks.
I'm seeing something on the back of this too. So do you reuse your canvases?
Everything's reused, yeah.
This is a great painting, but it's going to remain a secret.
Yeah.
And so this here is multimedia, and it looks
Yeah.
like you've done some wood burning, carving.
Yep,
burning.
there's some wood burning and some collaging, if you will, and
Beautiful things done here.
there's some leather in there. There's some, you know, there's cut paper, drawing. This is a series of wood burnings and collages that I did with, where I was kind of going for a more of a little coffee house approach. I wanted like tiny little things that were kind of comfortable little items that you
Right,
might.
and these were displayed someplace.
These have been displayed in a lot of little coffee houses,
Yeah,
actually.
And this is another one part of the series.
Yep.
Nice, very cool. You can see your stagehand, the effects that it had on you, because you're like, I like your wood burning. I think that's so neat, fascinating.
Yeah, it goes with it.
It would be fun to do that. This is completely different from those. You have a lot of different influences.
Yeah. This is a landscape that I did of the Intervale in Burlington, actually. It's oil on wood, and I just kind of go out there with the easel on my back and hike around until I find
The plein air painter.
the plein air painter, that's right. And
That is fun.
yeah, it's, you know, I guess it's a lot like, you know, the Van Goghs of the day, and you know, trying
You
to
have
go
to
along.
paint sort of quickly if you're going to try to capture a certain light.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
I do a lot. I paint a lot with a palette. I don't use a brush too much when I go out and do that. I kind of like to kind of put the color on the board and then kind of move it around
Oh, interesting.
until I
Neat.
get
Very-
the image I'm
yeah.
looking for.
Right. Very neat. Well, and let's show some of the. Can we show you some of your sketches? And you're a muralist, which is fascinating. But one of the things that you did was a lot of program covers for the Hartford Children's Theater, which apparently is quite a large theater.
this
So this is the, So these are program covers, and some of it's looking right back through the blue screen here, but that's okay. It makes it interesting. And so how many of these program covers did you do?
Well, I was the scenic designer there for probably about 2 or 3 years. So I did 2 set builds and probably 5 or 6 programs and costume, you know.
I like these program covers. They're beautiful. You have another one in here too, I believe. Here, let me just lift this
Some
up.
black and white ones, yeah.
So, oh, this was West Side Story, or is this what? Yeah, this is West Side Story.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll show with the glint of the lights. Oh, that's great. I didn't even realize that was West Side Story. And what is this one over here?
That's an old mural I did at the club Nectar's. It's no longer in there anymore. They renovated the space, but it was a fun project for me to work on.
That was the big mural that went over the archway?
Yep.
This is the details from it?
Yeah, it was years ago, 2005 to
Right.
7, 8, 9.
And it's no
something like
longer
that.
there.
No longer there.
Shame.
Yeah.
A shame. Well, you know, art is fleeting like that sometimes.
Somebody's got it somewhere.
Here's another program cover. Yeah. Nice. And this, I don't think this would show up on camera. And very, very interesting. You dabble in everything. And you're also a musician.
I play in a small group, trio, called The Parts, yeah.
The Parts?
Yeah.
And you play around here?
We do, yep. We just played Shelburne Orchard's Small Farm Food Festival a couple weeks ago. That was a fun time. And we have a studio downtown, so we play a lot. We've been playing for a long time, the guys that I play with.
Yep, 3 of you.
Yep.
Rock music,
Yep, indie rock,
indie rock.
rock and roll.
Yeah. And you have, and where is your studio?
It's at the Green Door Studios on Pine Street.
Okay. Right in that artsy area.
Yeah, a little alleyways back there.
Right. There's a lot there. When you go to the art hop, you find all these little niches and little alleyways and doors and stairways and yes, it was pretty fun at the art hop. So you weren't you didn't do the art hop this year, play or?
The band didn't play, but I did show this year. I showed an installation. It was like a little tea house installation, so you could kind of crawl inside and interactive. I actually have one that I did in Boston. If you want to see
Yes.
that one in here,
Yeah.
it's similar. It's not a.
And how big was this installation?
It's right here.
I saw that. Was that near where your studio is?
Yeah. Yep.
I saw that. That's great.
Yeah. It's just like it's kind of like you know. It's
Sort of
something I create.
It pulls you in because it's
I
small.
hope so. I created this one in the gallery, and so it has a lot to do with art paintings and building with art paintings and art of their surrounding area. So I kind of try to take from the area to that in which it's built in. So the one I built in Pine Street was, that was kind of like, a little shabby. A little bit,
Yeah, it was great.
Trashy,
Well, it was
if you will.
small and lit up, and of course I have this. I like dollhouses and miniatures, and so it pulled me right in for sure.
It's a place of meditation.
Right. Yeah, and actually, when you work on artwork, you kind of go into a zone. Do you ever get that, like, just forget about time altogether and just?
I used to. Now that I have 2 kids,
Now you're a busy dad.
I have a hard time getting in that zone
The
all
zone
the time.
gets interrupted a lot.
Stella and Lucy zone, I call it. But I do have a lot more. I feel like I do have a lot more drive when I go to do something now,
Right.
instead of the hours of
Right.
what should I do?
That 1 hour you have is meaningful.
Yeah, I can make it work.
So you teach ceramics, cartooning, and life drawing, and most of those are at the Firehouse on Church Street. But
Yep.
where is the ceramics studio?
That's underneath Memorial Auditorium. So it's you can find it, big blue sign, BCA, right underneath.
And are there a lot of openings usually for people to take classes?
Yep, there's tons of individualized classes, group classes, kids classes, anything you want. There's a brochure that comes out all the time. You can get one there at the Firehouse, or you could just pop in and talk to somebody. There's always someone there, a studio assistant or managing director. And
I've taken a couple classes there. They're great. You also have a huge mural at the New Davis Center at UVM, and you were telling me it's about 40 feet by 12 feet.
About, yeah.
And it depicts like what type of art?
It's musicians, some local, some dead and gone, Miles Davis. It also depicts some influences of my own Native American culture, religious iconography. There's a lot of different things going on. So
With all that space, you could put a lot of different things in it. You just go on and on.
it's pretty
Like
surreal.
Michelangelo.
You'll have to go check it out.
Yeah, I definitely want to check it out. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
That was really fun. You're an interesting person, a great teacher, I'm sure, and I
appreciate it.
think everybody should take a class from Dan. And you have an email address. It's DAN, tell me what it is.
Dan Lepal.
DANLEPAL at yahoo.com.
Yep.
So if you can email you, or people could go to, I guess you have a YouTube.
You can find me at
Stream.
music on YouTube. Yep.
Under Dan LeFrancois.
Yeah.
And
if you're
it's your own
interested.
music.
Yeah, it's my own original
And your band
stuff.
plays original music.
We do.
Nice. All right. Well, I just have one other quick thing to say. At Nectar's on Wednesday, October 30th, there's a band playing. It's called Abraxas. It's a new band. 6 of Vermont's finest musicians have banded together to recreate the infectious, intricate rhythms and soulful melodic guitar that define the Santana sound. And the lineup of Abraxas is Carlos Velez on percussion, Jeff Salisbury on percussion, Caleb Bronze on drums, Tom Carvey bass, Kobe Gatos on keyboards, and Ken French on guitar. And I think it's going to be an amazing show. So thank you very much for watching Art Break. You can contact me, Kathy Hartley, at artbreakvermont@gmail.com. And if you're a creative Vermonter, I would absolutely love to interview you and promote you. And so contact me and have a great artful day. Thank you very much.
Have you read the news? Have you let it